With interactive elements, we have many options for collecting information from the users. There are several interactive HTML elements that request information. We've already covered the input element and many of its types. The button element is, well, for buttons. A button element provides an interactive item that can be clicked using the mouse, keyboard, touch, or other options based on the user's device. Clicking a button normally provides an action, such as performing a calculation or saving data. The text area element provides a larger entry box for entry of larger amounts of text. It has a rows attribute to define the default size and number of text lines. And the select element displays a drop-down box for the user to select one item from a list. Multiple option elements nested under the select define the options shown in the drop-down. Let's try out these other interactive elements. We are in VS Code just the way we left it, with the Pet Cafe folder open and looking at the pet-create.html file we just created. Let's add an input element so the user can enter their new pet's backstory. We'll add it after the age here. Start with a P element to add some white space, and then add the input element. Set the type attribute to text and the ID attribute to backstory. Just like we have before, we add the label element above the input, set the for attribute to the ID of the input, and set the content to pet's backstory. Then let's add a button at the bottom, before the main closing tag. Again, we start with a P element and nest the button inside. Add the button text as the element contents. Let's say, save this pet. Looking at the browser, here's our button. Clicking the button doesn't do anything. As we have it on this page, it doesn't have any default behavior. We'd need to write some code to tell the button what to do, as we'll see when we write JavaScript later in this series. Or add the button to a form, which we'll see later in this lesson. Here is the input element we just added. If we wanted to enter a paragraph or more of text, the content is hard to see and edit in this single-line text box. Let's go back to the editor and try out the text area element instead. We'll give it an ID of backstory and set its rows attribute to define how big we want the default data entry area. Let's try 5 rows. Then we can delete the input element. Viewing it in the browser, we have a larger data entry area that's big enough for 5 rows of text. The user can drag the handle in the lower right corner to make the box bigger or smaller as needed. With that in place, let's go back to VS Code and create a drop-down list for the user to pick a dog or cat breed. We'll add it after the pet type field set here. We start with a P element to add some white space. Then we add a select element and set its ID to breed. We'll add a label above the select and set its for attribute to the select element's ID. We set the label content to pet's breed. Nested under the select, we add option elements for the drop-down list. Let's add 3 option elements. We can use Emmet for this. Option times 3. Enter. We set their contents to Calico, Tabby, and Corgi. Feel free to add more options with your favorite breeds. We also need to set the value property of each of the options. Recall that the user doesn't enter a value when using a drop-down list. Rather, the selected option automatically assigns a value based on the user's choice. So we need to define the value represented by each option. Let's set the value to the name of the breed, but in lowercase. Let's see how that looks in the browser. Click the arrow to drop down the list, and the user can select one of the options. Cool! We've now defined a wide range of interactive elements for obtaining user input. That will be handy as you build your own interactive pages. Let's go back to the slides. So, use the button element to display a button that the user can click. The button won't do anything unless we write code for it, or it's within a form, as we'll see coming up. The text area element displays a multi-line text entry box. Use the rows attribute to specify the default size in rows. The select element displays a drop-down list of options and the user can select one. The option elements define the select options and are nested within the select element. We can use any of these interactive elements outside of a form, but if we want to use them to collect data from the user and submit that data to a backend server for saving, we'll need a form. Let's check out HTML forms next.